Hello and welcome to A Bird Resurrected on the Edge. And yes, I know, once again, you will have seen the title. So what we have here is the QSP Phoenix, and a very, very dirty bird, this. So let me just give that blade a little bit of a wipe down. I'll explain why that is so dusty in a second. But this, the second QSP knife on the edge. Brand that I was kind of introduced to rather recently and impressed with the knives, especially based on their price. And in fact, I have added, I mentioned that in a previous review, I have added one of their knives to my collection. So as I say, the second QSP that I am reviewing on the edge. And what does QSP stand for? Well, it is quality, service, and price. So, right, I can't vouch for the quality. I mean, I can vouch for the quality. I can't vouch for the service component of that yet, but I can vouch for quality and price, especially when you balance the two, the price versus the build of the knife. Wow, okay, I'm going to stop waffling now. So that's because I don't have a designer to speak about, so I have to fill the time with something. So guys, I'm going to be doing the usual now. Materials, dimensions, and weight, and then dive into design and attributes of this knife. Right, let's get cracking. Materials, we've got a blade of D2, and now you might understand why the blade was dusty, and that's because I've been putting a little coat of oil on the blade every now and again, and that just causes the dust and fluff to stick to that blade. So there you go. Blade of D2. Handle is G10. Liner, stainless steel. The clip is stainless steel. The back spacer is also G10, and the pivot assembly makes use of stainless steel ball bearings, and once again, at this price point, ball bearings, very, very nice little surprise in the knife. Right, now dimensions and weight. So blade length, we've got 95 millimeters, and that's 3.74 inches. Blade thickness is 3.5 millimeters, and that is 0.13 inches. Handle thickness is 15.3 millimeters, and that's 0.6 inches. Close length of the knife is 124 millimeters, and that is 4.88, I think, inches. Reading my own handwriting. And then overall length of the knife is 219 millimeters, and that's 8.63 inches. Right, and again, as per usual, I have weights. So in this case, weights as stated by QSP, and I'm going to be checking that on my scale once again. So let's get that on. And what are we on? We're on grams. Let's get that centered. 140 grams. They said 144 grams, so slightly lighter than they stated. And what does that look like in ounces? Again, slightly lighter. They say 5.1 ounces. I get 4.9. And once again, I'm going to say it just gives you a little bit of a ballpark. Right, let's get this knife open. So another good-looking knife, and I think that perhaps I have a problem. Because most knives I get in my hand, I tend to think are good looking. But I really do think that this knife has some very neat, understated little styling touches. Right, so let's get into the specifics. Blade shape, reverse tanto, probably is the best description of that. I suppose you could argue that it is also maybe a Warncliffe, but I'm going to stick to reverse tanto. So you can see the sharp drop to the blade, and you know what that obviously achieves is it gets the tip of your blade a little bit lower in relation to the handle, and then obviously gets the full edge of the knife a little bit closer to the surface that you're cutting as well. The finish, so a two-tone finish on this blade. It is a flat grind, by the way, and you've got a satin finish on the main grind. So try to get that at an angle so it doesn't reflect too much, so that you can also see the grind though. So neatly done, that the grind lines on there. So flat grind, as I mentioned, and then that the satin, and then the finish on the ricasso and flat of the blade, that's in a stonewash, and that stonewash actually also looks pretty good, also very neatly done. biggest sharpening choil behind the edge. And by the way, that edge also very tidy and nice and sharp out of the box. Really very, very neatly done. Then I did mention now the biggest sharpening choil, so easy enough to keep that edge nice and tidy. Spine of the blade. So the spine of the blade also finished in that stonewash, sort of squared off spine, and then very shallow jimping, that sort of like a coin edge. And I've got to say, not too much grip to that. There is a little bit, but you don't get a massive amount of purchase on that jimping. Markings on the blade. So we've got the QSP logo, so the QSP with the flames coming off it, and I suppose even more appropriate now considering the name of this knife is the Phoenix. And then on the other side, on the flat of the blade there, you can see the D2, the blade steel. Right, let's look at the flipper. So we've got a, well, almost obnoxious a very big flipper tab on this, but I guess in relation to the rest of the knife, I suppose doesn't look too out of sorts. And that's got a little bit of jimping again, where you'd expect jimping to be on a flipper. Right, let's get that open and look at the overall shape of the knife. So that also really looks good. So the line of the spine of the blade runs smoothly onto the spine of the handle, and then we've got this very gentle curve, sort of gentle drop to the handle as it runs to the back of the knife. And this bit of styling at the back I also really do think looks good. So this angled cut, and then there's another little bit of nice shaping that I want to speak about here as well. So let's first look at it on the what is that, the lock side. But this little step that's created in the handle, I really do think from a styling perspective that does look good. So this little cutback, but instead of that being curved or generally curved, just a little step back and then the step back up as you get to the front of the handle. And that particularly looks good on the other side, so on the show side, where you now have the two steps. So you've got that little bit of an angle and then running down to one step and then another step there. And that makes sense. That extra step that's created there is obviously just to give you a little bit of room to get to that lock. But the way it is done, the way that that is styled, I really do think that that looks very good. And those sort of lines, that generally tapered shape of the handle, works so well with the way that the scale, the G10 scale, is done on this handle as well. So you can see those milled lines, but how they taper off towards the back of the handle to sort of follow the general shape, that general tapered shape of the handle as well. I really do think that that is very classy and beautifully done. On either side towards the spine of the handle and around where your fingers are, that has kind of been beveled, but it's a hollow bevel done to that on both sides, and that also really nicely done. So the general shape, if you look at it end on of that handle, does kind of create that rounded overall effect, and that does also really feel good in hand. So the ergos on the knife do feel good. It is a big handle, there's no hot spots on it, but you can see what that looks like in my hands, and I've got medium-sized hands. I wear a large glove. You can see I very easily get onto this handle. So you got bigger hands, you are very comfortably going to get onto this quite big knife as well. So just so that you can see, if I open my fingers, so you can see that the three fingers there fit into that general area of the handle, and then my little finger onto that platform at the back. But that does feel very good. Right, what else? Let's speak about the pocket clip. So we've got tip up, and it is reversible, and it's one of those wraparound clips, but not mounted incredibly high on the handle. So if you look at that from the side, well, you don't need to look at it from the side. If you look at it from the front, you can see that in your pocket you're going to get a little bit of the knife sticking out the back. So it is relatively deep, but it's not one of those where the knife is completely hidden, and obviously you're going to see the pocket clip as well. And then little cutaways to give you access to those torque screws so that you can get the pocket clip onto the other side. Space in the back of that, pretty good. So the clip is countersunk, but the screws aren't. But this is a nice little touch. So there's the little cutout in the G10 scale to make allowances for you to mount the clip onto this side as well. But they've just provided that little stainless steel little cap, that little plate to cover up the milling. And I think that's just such a nice touch. And again, I've got to mention the fact that this is a budget knife. It is an entry-level sort of price point. So little touches like that are just, I think, very classy. And it's just a little bit of extra that QSP seem to be doing at this price point is quite something. And as I turned it, I saw something that I forgot to mention. So that G10 backspacer, you can see incredibly tidily done jimping on that as well. And if you hold the knife slightly sideways, you can see that that jimping sits just a little bit proud of the liners. So it does actually work as jimping when you get the knife in your hand. Right, what else? So we've got torque screws all over, easy enough to get inside the knife. But here again, another beautiful little bit of styling, and it's just the styling around the pivot caps, and you can see that. So it's not just left alone. Even on this budget knife, they have put a little bit of effort into that, and that also, from a styling perspective, just does look very, very good. Let's get the knife open and have a look on the inside. So the liners, the stainless steel liners, have been quite heavily milled on the inside. So it's sort of skeletonized liners, and that obviously to save a bit of space on this pretty big knife, and that done on both sides. You can sort of see the circular milling holes drilled into the liner on the lock side. The lock is a liner lock, standard fare, nothing unusual there. And I spoke about that little cutback, so easy enough to get in there to unlock the knife, to get access to that lock. So all very good on that front as well. Action on the knife, very good again. So it is running on stainless steel bearings in this instance, and it really does fly out there. And with the weight and size of that blade, it is a little bit drop shutty as well, maybe a little bit of coaxing there, but yeah, that also very good. Only one way to deploy the blade. You've got that big the big flipper, and that is, as I say, it's the only way to get the blade opening. Blade centering bang on. So all around a really well made, well constructed, well manufactured, yes, the fit and finish, I guess is what I'm trying to say on the knife. Really very, very good. And I'm going to mention again the general styling, the overall shape of the knife. It does appeal to me. It's tidy. It's one of those knives that is, it is a tidy, understated designed knife. And then I see something else I've forgotten to mention. So the lanyard hole also neatly done. So that sort of capsule type shape, pull type shape lanyard hole, but also very tidily done, and even that has a little bit of a beveled edge around it. So really, again, another, so the second, as I said, QSP knife that I'm reviewing, and another knife that I'm really, really impressed with. The other one that I reviewed, it had the CPM, it had the what is the blade steel that it had on it? The Sandvik steel. It was the Sandvik steel blade. And there was sort of little ripples on the blade there, but nothing of the sort on this. The finish on this blade, really gorgeously done. Right, guys, let me just lay the knife down and do my usual, give my gratitude once again to Blades and Triggers, another knife that comes from them. I really do appreciate their ongoing support of the channel. So check the other QSP knives and other brands of knives and other tactical goodies out on their website, and that is BNT Online. And I think that just leaves me to do some size comparisons. And now I brought this knife out for something else, but I'm going to open it now, and I can't actually remember the name of this knife. Is it the Hussar? I think it is. The Rake Hussar. If it's not, I'll put a little note in. But those are similarly sized knives, and I think the QSP is actually even at a lower price point. But there you go, more just to see scale of those two knives together. And then I'll use the usual knives. So what have I got here? The Spyderco Manix 2, give you some scale of those two, so you can see that the Phoenix is a big knife. Right, so there's that. And then this, the Spider OPM 3, the smaller version. Give you some scale on that as well. And then let me just do that properly. There we go. It's going to bother me. Right, and this is still on the desk as well, so I may as well. Wow, what is going on today? I have to do that again as well. There we go. That's better. That's how a Medford knife should open. That's the Medford Slim Midi. Give you some scale on that. And then the last one is going to be the knife that I always do use, and that is the Benchmade Mini Barrage, just for some scale on that as well. Right, and I think that is just about it. So just a little bit of a summary on my thoughts on the knife. So my second QSP being reviewed, and my second one that I am impressed with, especially when you consider the price. You look at the design that you're getting, the fit and finish, the fact that you're getting ball bearings, the action is really good. So if you are looking, I seem to be saying this more and more, there just seems to be so many options of budget knives out there. It really is a good time to be a person who carries a knife. And if you are looking for a budget knife that you can use for hard use, that you don't mind getting sort of scuffed up, wow, there are so many rich pickings out there at the moment. And here is another one and another brand. I am so far, the knives that I've seen, incredibly impressed. And again, it's the value that you're getting out of it. It is a budget knife that is nicely designed, well finished, beautifully finished, works well, feels good. What reason would you not recommend something like this to someone for, if you are looking for a budget knife that it's well made, that seems good quality? And just while I'm looking at it, it's just the way the liners and the scales butt up to each other, that perfect. It is smoothly done all the way around, no rough edges, nowhere where you can look at this knife and think, it's a little bit rough. Yeah, you can see they've compromised here, they've compromised there. The compromise comes on materials. Obviously, you're getting the D2 and it's stainless steel and so on. But, well, that is it. The rest of the knife, like I say, the little bit of attention to detail, the styling and general design of the knife, really beautiful. And that is it. So, guys, all that's left for me to do is, once again, thank you for joining me. I always really do appreciate it when you do, and would equally appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so that you can be notified every time I release a new video, because, as I always do say, I really would love you to join me more often. And as well, as I have been saying of late, please, if you enjoyed the video, do give it a like. It does help with the algorithms. And other than that, you go well, and God bless.